Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, 104.7 The Cave. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 153. And we'll get right into it. This week was my pick. It's called Unknown Cave of Bones. You can watch it on Netflix. And man, what a very cool documentary. I just pulled out of the hat. I had no idea. I was like, that name looks cool. Let's check this out. Yeah. And it could have gone either way. But I thought we'll do our reviews down the road. But I thought overall it was bad.
Yeah, and it's there's just been a lot of talk going on with this kind of stuff lately. I've been going down some rabbit holes on all this, how history timeline of human man is they're finding lots of evidence that it's way different and older than people think.
Yeah, and again, we all we know as far as what we know is recorded history. And when we talk about the development of human beings and our evolution from rodents through chimpanzees and monkeys to where we are now, there's been a lot of different versions of what that looks like. Yeah. And this documentary tells a story about a team who a number of years ago found a cave in South Africa. And when they went into it and they were kind of exploring, they thought what they believed was a burial site. Now, this is interesting because these things were not actually human beings. Yeah. They were like an early form of us. So almost like hybrid of like a chimpanzee and a human. And so they put out what they call a hypothesis. And if you are in school or went to school, you know that when you put out a hypothesis, it's not saying this is fact. This is what we believe.
Here's what we think, and we're going to try to scientifically prove it.
Yeah, and so they put it out, and all the scientists across the world are like, no way.
Well, they do that all the time. The old school guys, the old school scientists don't want to change their beliefs, man. I don't know why. It's the weirdest thing. The Earth is
flat.
Weirdest thing, yeah.
The universe
pyramids,
revolves around.
All this stuff, it's...
And again, that is the scientist's gig, is to say say what you got to say and show me the evidence behind it.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't want to see the evidence, and then they it's very weird. They stonewall some of these guys. Weird.
Right out of the gate, okay, if you were to use that argument that, let's, for example, in this case, these things or whatever, our ancestors didn't have a brain size big enough to have the concept of death or life after death or what to do with the dead when they're gone. So if that's the case, how the hell do dolphins communicate to each other?
Yeah, I know.
Or how the hell do elephants mourn their dead?
You can poke holes in all kinds of stuff.
So
whales,
again, the whole brain thing that these guys were saying was not, to me, it was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's how you utilize what you have.
The jig is up for a lot of those scientists. There's too much evidence just coming in left and right for all the old school scientists.
And again, what they found in this documentary literally blew me away.
Wild stuff, man.
But to actually get there, they had to do some spelunking that made me pucker up big time.
And I know, man. After the cave thing we did, I was like, there's no way,
we'll talk about that next, because I wanted to bring that up. Dark Side of the Stream continues on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 153, Unknown Cave of Bones. Now, as I mentioned in the last break, this was about an archaeological dig that was actually done in a cave in South Africa. It's not easy to get into. And if you've ever done any cave exploring like Jay and I have.
Yeah. Should we mention that we are experienced spelunkists?
Yeah. We both went down to Adventure Caves in Branson. And it was an awesome experience.
I feel like I got duped on that. I did not know what I was in for.
So the funny thing is, like, there's a couple things you might not know about Jay. Jay does have the rock and roll lifestyle, and Jay loves to party. But when it comes to heights,
no.
He won't touch it.
And outdoorsmanship.
When it comes to outdoor living off the land stuff, nope. You won't find him in a tent.
I ain't camping.
You ain't gonna find him covered in mud and dirt and stinking after 3 days out on the Buffalo River. That's not Jay Stevens, but it is definitely Mike the Intern. That's why I was like, let's just keep going. Well, the funny thing about that trip is the guides were like, let's go. Everyone except for me. At a certain point, we're like, let's keep going. What are you talking about? Let's keep going. Everyone's like, can we turn around?
Yeah,
Can we
done.
go back?
I was done.
And I was like,
wading through mud caves.
Having that perspective, watching this documentary and what they actually had to go to get to the location of where these burial plots were was insane. The shoot itself, for just some perspective, the lead investigator on this team, he's an older guy. And at the very beginning of the documentary, he says, there's no way I'm actually going to be able to get back into the room where they found this burial. But then after a few years, he kind of gave himself the goal to be able to do it. So he lost a bunch of weight. He started exercising, and then eventually was able to go down there. The only thing was, at one point, he actually got stuck going down that chute. And they had to take out a hammer and like start chiseling away rock to get him free. Dude, that was like,
That's
no.
But yeah, where these bones were all at and buried, it's hard to get to. It's not like they just laid them out here
and
somewhere.
And the thing is, they were buried together.
Yeah.
They were buried together. It wasn't like just a couple bones. We're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bones.
This was their stash house for their dead.
Yeah, and that whole thing, it's almost as if it's kind of like a journey to get there.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's what it felt like.
Especially carrying a dead body with you, man.
So another big question is, okay, let's say hypothetically that these creatures were able to take their dead and they would take them in this cave all the way back through this chute that's like 20 inches or whatever to get through and all this stuff. How the hell did they see back there? There's no way.
Yeah.
Well,
fire.
One of the things that they found in the entrance to this cave is evidence of fire. I mean, you can see it. There's black soot. It almost looks like charred wood sitting there. So the thought is that they would basically just make these little tiny fires as they would go into the cave with multiple people tending them as they would go through this whole ceremony, which it's totally plausible that they would do that. There's evidence to support the fact that there were fires in there.
Yeah, it's wild.
Bro. But what's more wild is what they actually found when they went back in to get more evidence of these people, things burying this stuff. And that is a tease, Jay Stevens. And we'll be back next, Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The K. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio, Dark Side of the Stream, episode 153, discussing Unknown Cave of Bones. So as we teased, they did find something even more amazing beyond what I believed was the burial plot in the back of this cave. We're talking about 400 to 500,000 years ago. Okay, this isn't like the Bogman of 80,000 years ago.
No,
this is 400,000 years ago that these ancestors of ours were burying their dead. They didn't look like humans. They looked like a cross between a human and a chimp, but they needed more evidence to prove their hypothesis that they were inevitably burying their dead. So when they went back into the cave and they were shooting this thing, they find this rock, and inside of it, they see a bone. And so they think that this is just a full skeleton, and that getting that rock out of there, like the plaster thing, and all they had to do to get it out was unbelievable.
Well, they compared them. They called themselves some astronauts, right? Like,
yeah, I remember that term.
But they're in-ground astronauts because they basically are exploring these dangerous regions,
but they're inside instead of outside
in the earth.
Yeah, which is a really good way to describe it. That whole process was amazing. So they take this rock or fossil out, and they do like a CT scan on it, and they see a skeleton, but inside the skeleton, they see what they believe to be almost like a tool.
Yeah.
Now, they can't definitively say that based on the CT scan they had at that point. So he actually takes it to France, in the world's biggest CT scanner thing. And like, think about your x-ray at the doctor times a million.
The pro version.
Yeah.
The paid version.
The biggest one. Yeah. The big paid version. And so they dive into this thing, and they can tell, it proved it to me based on what I saw, was that this was a tool. They could see the chisel marks on it. It had been carved. You can see it. It would have been sharpened. It was placed in this baby's hand or child's hand. And that in itself is like, whoa. But again, just because they had that in the kids or whatever, this child's hand, doesn't necessarily mean it was a tool. So then the investigator gets a chance to go back in there, and the first thing that he sees when he gets back into that room are marks all over the wall that are like X's. And the only thing around that area that could have used to do that was that tool in that kid's hand. I mean, at that point, I was sold. I was like, those things are burying their dead. This was a ceremony for them. I don't care if it was
fire,
hundreds of thousands of years before written evidence that we existed.
The old school man.
That's huge to me.
That's wild,
I thought I was just like, dude, bottom. That's it.
Wild.
It's wild. But it completely changes our idea of how far back this whole thing goes. And like you started off with the beginning, I think I've always heard that the human race is a species of amnesia.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we've been here before.
That there's been civilizations before that were super advanced too, and that just had different type of technology, and like the pyramid builders and stuff. because they say that those pyramids, the Egyptians didn't build them. The Egyptians showed up. Those things were already there. Yeah. So
I've heard that because you can't carbon date limestone. That's why they say that. But then there's also the argument that the stuff in between that actually holds it together actually does have organic material that they can carbon date. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
wild stuff, man.
Wild stuff. And we'll give it our reviews next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one more time. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 153, Unknown Cave of Bones. I would give this documentary a solid 4.5 bones.
I'm going 4, and I think that the name of the documentary, it would be a great metal album name.
Cave of Bones. There's actually I want to say they're like a doom metal band out of Lawrence, Kansas. Now they're like, I think on Relapse or something, but they were from Lawrence, called Sea of Bones, which is like the most
similar,
metal
Sea of
Bones. But yeah, Cave of Bones, great metal name. I think if you like anything about history, science, archaeology, exploring caves, being outdoors,
it's cool. And it was an easy watch.
Hour and a half, baby.
Chill watch.
That's how Mike the Intern does it.
Kind of put it on. Yeah, that's how you.
I don't give 15-hour
with
saga we got to watch. That could have been 10 minutes.
That was the worst,
dude. So awful. But now, speaking of bad documentaries, what's your pick?
Okay. Well, I got 2 choices. One is kind of low-hanging fruit. Maybe I'll save that one. So instead, we'll go to HBO Max, Telemarketer. It's a documentary about some guys that filmed their time in a telemarketer, and as they kind of figured out, hey, maybe this is a scam. and having worked in a phone room at one point in LA, you did too.
Telemarketer for timeshares. I can't wait to go down that road.
I worked in a phone room in Hollywood, and that's where all the rockers went to work. So
that's where all the stoners in Southwest Missouri worked.
You got to watch this whole thing because it turns into something the way the good documentaries do, more than what it started as. So
Telemarketer, HBO Max. That's our homework assignment. As always, you can watch Jay and I do this live on Facebook or YouTube every Thursday at 9 a.m. or listen to us do it at 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. on his show or my show, or as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave.
Come over, we'll watch Netflix in my shower if you want.
You have a TV in your shower now?
I bring my phone in there. No comment.
Okay, I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens reminding you, I don't bring my phone into the shower.
Sometimes I have to watch documentaries when I can.
But he does. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.